There is an invisible threshold in every relationship, a single moment where everything changes permanently, yet almost every man walks right past it without noticing. The moment a woman decides to share one specific piece of her inner world with you, something she handles with extreme care and never speaks of lightly, she is crossing an emotional boundary that cannot be uncrossed. She is stepping out of the territory of casual dating and into the territory of real attachment. Most men completely misread this moment. They treat it like regular conversation or casual small talk, totally blind to the fact that they are standing at a massive crossroads. By missing the weight of what is happening right in front of them, they let the deepest, most authentic connection of their lives slip right through their fingers without ever realizing they even have it in their hands to begin with. The fundamental mistake men make is misunderstanding how love actually takes root in a woman's mind. Men are conditioned to believe that love is built on a series of grand, cinematic gestures, expensive dates, physical closeness, or a nonstop flood of attention. You think that by putting on a performance or keeping her entertained in the spotlight, you are winning her heart. But the psychological reality is that a woman does not fall in love in the spotlight. She falls in love in the quiet, unglamorous moments of emotional safety. It happens internally, silently, and long before she ever gives you a conscious sign. While you are busy trying to impress her with external things, a profound shift is happening beneath the surface of her awareness. Her brain is actively rewriting how it perceives you, systematically moving you out of the category of a potential partner and placing you into the rare, protected category of a person who genuinely matters to her survival and happiness. This is no longer basic physical or intellectual attraction. This is the psychological scaffolding of deep attachment locking into place. You must understand that she is never going to give you a formal announcement when this internal shift takes place. She will never look you in the eyes and say, I am starting to fall for you now. The stakes are far too high for her to be that direct. Instead, this transition leaks out. It shows up as a single, highly specific, vulnerable reveal, an unexpected emotional door that she unlocks just for you, a door she keeps heavily guarded and completely hidden from the rest of the world. When she opens that door and exposes a raw piece of herself, she is not playing a game, and she is certainly not testing you to see how clever your response will be. She is doing something much more serious. She is trusting you. For a woman, emotional safety is the absolute non negotiable foundation upon which all real love is built. Excitement, charm, wealth, and status might get her attention, but they possess zero power when it comes to holding her heart. If she takes the massive risk of revealing this hidden part of herself, and you meet her with genuine care, a grounded presence, and calm, unwavering strength, the emotional trajectory of the relationship changes instantly. Her feelings will deepen at a speed that will shock you because you have proven that you can handle her reality. But if you handle that moment poorly, if you dismiss what she says, make a joke to ease your own discomfort, or immediately redirect the conversation to make it about yourself, something inside her will quietly, permanently shut down. She may go right back to smiling, she may keep talking to you, and she may remain physically present in the room, but the truth is that her heart will start walking away from you long before her body ever does. What exactly is this silent confession? What is this specific moment that carries more psychological weight than months of flirting, physical closeness, or casual dating? It is the exact second she decides to share something that leaves her completely, entirely exposed to you. This isn't a fun story from her past or a casual update about her week. It is a deep seated fear, a sharp piece of past heartbreak, a lingering insecurity, or a specific story from her life where she was not strong, polished, beautiful, or in control. When a woman reaches into her past and reveals to you exactly where she has bled emotionally, she is doing something incredibly profound. She is taking her raw, unedited emotional history, placing it directly into your hands, and quietly watching to see what you are going to do with it. She is handing you the exact blueprint of her vulnerabilities, trusting that you won't use it to hurt her. To truly understand why this moment is so massive, you have to realize that women are conditioned from a very young age to appear emotionally composed, put together, and completely in control of themselves. Because of this social pressure, every woman develops distinct psychological layers to protect her inner world. The outermost layer is simply her personality, the fun, charming, social version of herself that she shows to the general public, coworkers, and casual acquaintances. Right beneath that is the middle layer, which consists of her daily feelings, her surface level opinions, and her temporary moods. But then there is the deepest, most heavily guarded inner layer. This is the vault that holds her permanent emotional memories, the ones tied to deep pain, past rejection, childhood abandonment, or intense moments of self doubt. Access to this specific layer is never given away casually to just anyone. It has to be earned through consistent trust. The absolute second she looks at you and utters phrases like, "I don't usually tell people this," or "this might sound silly, but," the entire dynamic of the relationship has shifted. She is no longer making conversation. She is taking a massive emotional gamble on you. During this high stakes moment, her entire nervous system goes on high alert, actively assessing your emotional presence. Here is the secret that most men completely miss. She is not actually evaluating the specific words coming out of your mouth. She does not care if you have a poetic response or a brilliant piece of advice. Instead, she is testing your capacity to stay grounded, steady, and calm while she is being messy and vulnerable. Her subconscious mind is tracking your every move, asking silent questions. Do you stay quiet and look her in the eyes? Or do you awkwardly shift your weight and look away? Do you listen with deep empathy without interrupting? Or do you rush to cut her off and fix her problems? Women do not fall in love with men who rush to control the conversation or handle the moment like a puzzle to be solved. They fall in love with men who possess the rare strength to simply hold space for their emotions. This is how human psychology works at its deepest level. Raw vulnerability triggers intense neurological bonding. When she opens up her deepest flaws to you and realizes she is not being judged, ridiculed, or dismissed, a massive chemical reaction occurs in her brain. It floods her system with powerful chemicals like oxytocin, permanently associating your face, your voice, and your presence with a profound sense of relief, emotional grounding, and total psychological safety. The exact moment a woman opens up to you about a time she felt small, terrified, rejected, or entirely unsure of herself, a massive psychological trap opens up, and almost every single man falls straight into it. The second that raw emotion hits the air, most men experience a sudden, overwhelming spike of internal anxiety. You feel an immediate, suffocating pressure to perform. You subconsciously convince yourself that it is your job to step in as the hero, which means you feel absolutely compelled to solve the problem, hand out unsolicited advice, or desperately force the mood back to being happy and positive. This exact reaction is the precise crossroads where high value relationships are either won or completely lost. Men mistakenly believe that women want a problem solver, a strategist, or a cheerleader in these heavy moments. But the brutal truth of psychology is that love never takes root in emotional performance. It only grows in emotional steadiness. When you frantically rush to fix her feelings with logic and solutions, what she actually hears in her mind is a completely different message. Your emotions are an inconvenient problem, and I need to solve them so I can feel comfortable again. If you try to slide in a quick joke or act playful to lighten the heavy mood, she doesn't think you are fun. She feels that her fragile inner world isn't safe enough for you to take seriously. And if you go totally silent and emotionally freeze because the depth of the conversation makes you uncomfortable, her hypersensitive nervous system instantly sends a panic signal to her brain, screaming that she is completely alone in her vulnerability. None of these standard male reactions make you a bad person, and they don't mean you don't care. What they do permanently signal to her, however, is that you simply do not possess the emotional maturity or the masculine backbone required to sit inside deep, heavy territory without looking for an escape hatch. You are showing her that her depth frightens you. The type of man a woman truly, deeply falls for is the one who does not flinch for a single second when emotions get raw and real. He does not panic, he does not launch into a preachy lecture, and he never tries to awkwardly change the subject to something easier to digest. Instead of reacting with frantic mental energy, his physical body language stays completely relaxed. His breathing remains slow, and his vocal tone stays entirely grounded. When she finishes revealing her scar, he doesn't try to save the day with a dramatic speech or an elaborate heroic rescue plan. He keeps it incredibly simple, looking her dead in the eyes and saying something as genuine as, "I'm really glad you felt safe enough to tell me that." Or, "That sounds incredibly heavy to have carried all by yourself." That is it. No performance, no fix, just presence. This exact response acts like a master key to her psychology. It completely lowers her biological defenses. By refusing to panic, you force her entire system to associate you with a rare, protected sanctuary, a space where she can finally stop performing, drop her guard, and be fully human rather than perfect. You need to understand a brutal truth that most men spend their entire lives completely blind to. A woman is not falling in love with your external actions, your physical looks, your money, or your clever pickup lines. She is falling in love with your emotional presence, the exact way you exist in her space when all her guards are completely down. The very second she decides to share a raw, unedited piece of herself with you, she is quietly launching a major test on the completely invisible foundations of your character. She is handing you her rawest emotions and watching to see if your masculine container is strong enough to absorb them, or if you will crack under the pressure. She is watching to see if you will explode with frustration, withdraw into an uncomfortable silence, or project judgment onto her vulnerability. Your unique ability to remain absolutely steady, calm, and present in that heavy silence speaks directly to her subconscious mind. It tells her instinctive, survival driven nervous system, "I am safe with this man. He can handle my depth. He will not panic, and he will not abandon me when things get messy." That psychological security is 1,000 times more intoxicating, seductive, and addictive to a woman than any amount of superficial charm, wealth, or physical physique could ever hope to be. The moment you successfully pass this invisible test and establish real emotional safety, an undeniable biological chain reaction triggers inside her brain. Powerful bonding chemicals like oxytocin and dopamine instantly flood her entire nervous system, locking your identity into her mind as a source of extreme comfort and relief. Because of this neurochemical shift, she will naturally start thinking about you constantly when she is completely alone in her room. She will find herself randomly replaying the comforting tone of your voice, the steady look in your eyes, and the way she felt completely protected in your presence. She will begin longing for your company without even consciously understanding why it is happening. This deep, unshakable attachment does not happen overnight with a loud explosion. Instead, it creeps in subtly and silently, exactly like water slowly eroding a massive stone over time. It quietly reshapes her emotional landscape until she wakes up one day and realizes she literally cannot imagine her life without you by her side. However, you must remember that this profound psychological bonding can only occur if you completely resist the masculine urge to overanalyze her situation or lecture her on how to live her life. The absolute second you start handing out unsolicited advice, treating her trauma like a math problem, or lecturing her on what she did wrong, you immediately break the magical spell of attraction. The very moment you switch into an analytical mindset, her biological guard rushes right back up. Her emotional doors slam shut, and the process of deep attachment completely grinds to a halt. Men who truly master this psychological concept learn how to create a massive, almost hypnotic magnetic pull without needing to speak a single word. They don't need to boast, they don't need to show off, and they don't need to dominate the conversation. Instead, they simply provide an invisible, unshakable anchor in the middle of her emotional storm. That calm, masculine anchor is infinitely more compelling, attractive, and seductive to her heart than any superficial display of status, power, or wealth on the planet. Here is a truth that almost no man fully understands. Women do not measure love by the height of your grand gestures. They measure it by the depth of your emotional consistency. You can spend thousands of dollars on the most expensive gifts, plan dazzling, picture perfect dates, and say all the right romantic words to make her laugh. But if you falter, hesitate, or judge her the moment she finally opens up emotionally, every single bit of that superficial effort instantly disappears from her mind. You cannot buy your way into her heart if your presence cracks under pressure. Her vulnerability is a high stakes psychological crossroads. It is a defining moment where her subconscious mind actively decides, without her even realizing it, whether her heart is truly safe with you or if she needs to erect her walls higher than ever before. If she takes the massive risk of exposing her inner world and senses even a microscopic hint of impatience, frustration, or discomfort from you, her nervous system immediately flags you as a danger to her emotional well being. She may continue the date, she may keep smiling, and she may even crack jokes to keep the atmosphere light, but do not be fooled by that polite mask. Internally, a massive door has slammed shut. She has already begun the quiet process of withdrawing her emotional investment, permanently pulling back her feelings long before you even realize anything is wrong. Conversely, when a man greets her raw vulnerability with absolute calm focus and gentle, unwavering empathy, the psychological payoff is massive. Her brain instantly bypasses all logic and locks into a state of profound, unshakable trust. This deep, felt sense of emotional safety is the invisible glue of real love, the kind that cannot be faked or duplicated by charm alone. But you must understand that passing this test once does not mean you are set for life. This is not a one time exam that you can pass and then forget about. Women subconsciously measure your emotional reliability over and over again throughout the entire relationship. Every single time she reveals a piece of her inner world and you respond with a steady, masculine presence, the invisible bond between you grows exponentially stronger and tighter. But every single time you fail that moment by getting defensive, distracted, or uncomfortable, you create a pocket of silent, icy distance that pushes her further away. Your primary role in her life is not to put on a show or desperately try to impress her. Your true role is simply to exist in a way that consistently proves your presence is safe, steady, and entirely unwavering. That unshakable reliability is what makes her heart choose you for the long haul. The absolute moment a woman finally lowers her heavily guarded walls and exposes the raw, painful scars she usually hides from the rest of the world, she is not just telling you a story from her past. She is looking directly into your soul and asking a fundamental, life altering question. Can you handle me exactly as I am? Or do I need to hide my true self to keep you around? This is the precise moment where almost every ordinary man completely ruins his chances. Most men fail this test miserably because they completely confuse short term excitement with long term love. They mistakenly believe that as long as they keep the relationship fun, energetic, charming, and highly entertaining, her heart will stay locked in. But the brutal psychological reality is that shallow excitement only gets her initial attention. It possesses absolutely zero power when it comes to building the deep, unbreakable emotional scaffolding required to keep a woman's heart fully invested for the long haul. Attention is incredibly cheap, but the emotional safety required to hold her soul is rare. When you are the rare man who can look directly into her raw, unedited truth without flinching, panic, or judgment, something incredible happens to her psychology. You instantly become completely irreplaceable in your life. You morph into her absolute standard of emotional safety, the golden benchmark by which every single man who ever approaches her for the rest of her life will be judged. The reality is that her past is likely filled with men who dismissed her vulnerability, ignored her deep feelings, or made her feel crazy for being emotional. Every single one of those weak, emotionally immature men now becomes a powerful reference point in her mind. Your calm strength, your steady eye contact, and your grounded masculine presence will look completely extraordinary and incredibly attractive by simple comparison. She will look at you and realize that while other men ran away from her depth, you stood your ground like a rock. You aren't just another guy she is dating anymore. You are a sanctuary she cannot afford to lose. So, the next time you are sitting with her and she decides to share something that might seem completely small or insignificant to your logical male brain, you need to wake up and recognize the immense weight of the moment. Do not overthink it. Do not overanalyze her words. And whatever you do, do not react with cheap jokes to break the tension, defensive statements, or unprompted tactical advice. Instead, you need to shut your mouth, completely anchor yourself in the present moment, and hold your masculine calm like a shield. That exact conversation is not just casual talk, it is a permanent, definitive turning point in your relationship. If you handle it correctly by simply being an unshakable presence, her biological defenses will melt away completely. Long before she ever builds up the conscious courage to say the words out loud to you, her heart has already made its final choice. The only real question left hanging in the air is whether you are steady enough, strong enough, and grounded enough to keep it.